José Cárdenas, who has served in senior positions in the U.S. Department of State, the National Security Council, and the U.S. Agency for International Development, said it was erroneous for others to think or say that the U.S. has no authority to impose sanctions, as he referenced the sanctions imposed on Guyana's neighbor Venezuela. He explained that the use of sanctions is a disincentive for people who have malign interests.
So anybody in Georgetown who is thinking of either diverting the outcome of the election, the will of the Guyanese people, has been manifested not only in the March 2nd election, but in the recount, which has been pretty clear from all press reports. And it seems to be most of the international organizations, including CARICOM, have basically concluded that the recount shows that the opposition won the election. And if there's somebody that tries to thwart the will of the Guyanese people in that respect, Washington absolutely has measures it can impose on that individual that relates to their ability to, for example, have a bank account in the United States or otherwise do banking in their private lives that touch the U.S. economic system. That person also can lose their ability to travel to the United States. Their visas can be revoked. And if it is decided to be a larger conspiracy, and I'm just speculating here, but it's important to understand what the options are in the United States for all concerned, is that if there is determined to be a government-wide conspiracy to thwart the will of the Guyanese people, absolutely the U.S. can in place sectoral sanctions, which would, of course, threaten the oil patrimony that Guyana now possesses.
It has been 119 days now since Guyanese went to the polls, and to date, no winner has been declared. The recently concluded national 35-day recount and certification of all votes was embarked upon after returning officer of Guyana's largest voting district, Region 4, Clermont Mingo, inflated the numbers to give the coalition a victory at the polls. The recount proved that Mingo subtracted 3,000 plus PPP votes and added 19,000 votes for the coalition. But the recount, which was supervised by a high-level three-member CARICOM team, proved that the PPP won the elections by more than 15,000 votes. Local and international observers, including the Private Sector Commission, the Organization of American States OAS, the Commonwealth, and the ABCE foreign powers have urged acceptance of the recount results. Mr. Cárdenas explained that the U.S. will first seek to consult with international organizations before imposing sanctions, because it will have a huge impact on Guyana's oil industry. He made it clear that these stakeholders will use Guyana's oil as leverage, referring to U.S. oil major ExxonMobil, which is operating in Guyana's largest oil block. The freezing of the oil money is a worst-case scenario and will only be done based on the outcome of Guyana's elections, Mr. Cárdenas explained.
So yes, the answer to your question is if those funds sit in a U.S. institution, they certainly can be frozen. And you're absolutely right. I don't know I don't know in depth enough about the contracts that Guyana has signed with ExxonMobil, but I expect that it's always a possibility that the government, the current government, could attempt to, if again we are in that worst case scenario, and the oil and the funds and Exxon is prohibited from furthering exploitation or otherwise lifting the oil, moving it uh, to international markets. Very likelihood, I suspect, that the Guyanese government could attempt to sever its relationship with ExxonMobil and perhaps bring in a company such as we've seen in Venezuela, where Russian oil interests have been brought in to work. And these are, of course, entities that work around the U.S. financial system. It's not easy. It's more expensive. So you would have to find a partner who is willing to bear the excessive cost of doing business outside the U.S. Economic banking financial system.
The former top U.S. official urged President Granger to concede defeat at the polls and to allow the country to move on.
You know, when I see a man like President Granger, I think this is a man who has dedicated his life to Guyana and a better Guyana for his people. I think he has a lot of pride, and in the end, I think he'll do the right thing. I understand the the situation. I think that the ruling government has a lot of frustrations with what has taken place over the last few months, and you know it's a very human reaction to what I assume they feel to be have been treated unfairly in their minds. So I get that, but I think that in the end, I think that hope that President Granger does what is best for his country, and I think that is to understand that the people have spoken. Whether you believe the election was, there were problems with how it was conducted, is that my 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 humble advice with thoughts of the best thing for the Guyanese people is for President Granger to concede, and on day two begin the process of competing fairly and freely in the next election, and with an eye towards rectifying any discrepancies or problems they saw in the last election so that it doesn't happen again.
But despite President Granger previously committing to accepting the recount results, he has refused to accept defeat and has since embarked on a campaign to claim electoral fraud without providing evidence. The recount from the elections showed the opposition PPP winning by 15,416 votes. But these figures are not being accepted by the incumbent coalition, who has alleged that dead people and persons residing overseas voted. The Guyana Elections Commission is restrained from declaring the winner, as the matter is now engaging the attention of Guyana's final appellate court, the Caribbean Court of Justice.